Stephen, the Munster football final between Tipperary and Cork. After Cork's fantastic win over Kerry after extra time, 113 to 112, I was reading some quotes from Ian Maguire, their midfielder, and the way he was talking, I wonder, and this is wishful thinking from a Tipperary man, he says the other day was enjoying the moment and soaking in the moment with your teammates. Even Monday, Tuesday, you were still chatting with fellas on the team and we went training and you're still soaking in the moment. RTE didn't show, but whether it was right or wrong, the whole bench, Ronan McCarthy, Keane O'Neill, everyone ran straight onto the pitch, jumping up and down. The linesman had a heart attack. We don't know whether it was full time or not. The linesman then ushered us off and the full time whistle went. Is there any hope, and come on, tell me what I want to hear, that Cork have already played their final and Tipperary can come in and pick up the pieces?
Yeah, well, I'd say one thing, they're probably lucky that the pubs weren't open, because them boys mightn't have been back to training on the Tuesday. There would have been a Monday club and a Tuesday club. But listen, you have to listen, Jesus, Shane, my God, you have to enjoy. I'm a big believer you enjoy all wins, because life's too bloody short and football's become so serious, and it's and particularly at our county level, Shane, it's just become so serious and mundane. The players aren't allowed to give interviews and managers have to be careful what they say, and we miss that bit of colour and that bit of character. And I remember beating Louth in the championship in Portlaoise by 11 points in 2018 with Carlo, and there was a lad in Carlo who had developed his own beer, 56 South or something, and he came in and he said, Stevie, with the boys, would we all right to slip a crate of beer in there? I said, get in there, surely. And Turnout was coming in going mad, saying, look, the boys out there, the county board's going mad, there's beer in the chasers. I go, well, fuck off. I said, let the boys enjoy it. We have a great picture of everybody in the chasers with a couple of beers. And ironically, we were playing Kildare the following week and still went out and beat them by 7 points. Somebody from Kildare said to me, was that his biggest achievement? I said, my biggest achievement was keeping the Carlo boys off the beer before they played Kildare. But no, on a serious note, Shane, Cork will thoroughly have enjoyed that, and rightly so. And between us, I was thinking about this today, actually, and I was thinking about what I was going to say to you about this. There's a danger that they could maybe see themselves maybe as, they've played the final, and there could be a level of complacency. But I can't see it, Shane. How can there be a level of complacency when the prize at stake's an All-Ireland semi-final? You're 2 games away from an All-Ireland final. There can't be any complacency. Do you not think so?
Well, I'm hoping so, but I don't think so either, because not only that, you're 2 games away from an All-Ireland final, but the thing is, maybe they will underestimate Tipperary. Tipperary needed extra time to beat Limerick, a team they lost to last year, Division 4 team. And last year, Cork battered Tipperary 117 to 0-9. But the flip side is, in 2017, Cork barely beat Tipperary by a point. And I think it was that sort of late goal, or sort of a counter-attack goal from Cork, if I remember correctly. And a year before that, Tipperary beat Cork for the first time in the championship in 72 years, 315 to 216. So last year, Tipperary were poor, but this year, Tipperary got that win. It doesn't matter how they did it, they somehow managed to do it. You've Conor Sweeney in the forward line. You have Michael Quinlivan in the forward line. You've Colin Reardon back from the AFL. And even if he hasn't played that much football, he's a machine. And if Stephen O'Brien is fit as well, you've got guys who can compete for the kick-out. And Quinlivan will come out and compete for him as well. So, am I getting a bit carried away as a tip man?
I don't think you're getting carried away at all. And you probably forgot to mention something else as well. The whole historical thing behind Bloody Sunday as well, and wearing the jersey and wearing that unique jersey. And that can bring a level of energy, Shane, and a level of spirit in the group as well, which you can't coach and you can't buy. It's either in you or not. And you've got that whole thing as well hanging over them, Shane, so that might just give them an added edge as well going into Sunday. Not that they'll need any motivation, but listen, they've absolutely nothing to lose. The reality of the situation is, Shane, you're talking about 2 teams who are in the same division this year. So you're not talking about a gulf in 3 or 4 divisions. You're talking about 2 teams who were in the same division. My only thing is that Cork's consistency, Shane, during the National League, their win against Kerry, it probably just have a little bit more about them. I think they've got a really good bench. They've got a lot of good young lads coming in. Tipperary on paper have a frightening full forward line. Completely agree with you. Absolutely frightening. One of the best in the country, in my opinion. But it's just whether they can get enough ball into that full forward line and whether Cork will set up defensively like they did against Kerry.
Yeah, and do you think that cynicism that we saw in the Cork versus Kerry game, both sides now, for being honest, that will be on display at Páirc Uí Chaoimh?
Well, they won't have a Tipperary referee in the game, will they?
No.
So, but listen, I thought the referee the last day let Cork away with an enormous amount of fouls. I think their foul count was through the roof. There was one player individually, I think, at 12 fouls in particular, and they'll not get away with that on Sunday probably, and I don't think I don't think that will be part of their game plan anyway, Shane. It'll be a different type of approach now, because their game plan against Kerry was obviously to flood the middle third, stop the runners, and be cynical about it. And I don't think they'll need to do that again Tipperary. What they'll need to do is they'll need to defend their inside line, because that's Tipperary's energy line, and that's where a lot of Tipperary scores will come from. So, it wouldn't be surprising to see Cork take a different approach, and it wouldn't be surprising to see Cork try and turn this into a shootout. They probably felt they couldn't win a shootout against Kerry, but they'll feel they could win a shootout against Tipperary, and that's the key.
Yeah, final question then. Cork are 5-1 on, Tipperary are 5-1. Is that right? These teams, there was only a point in it in the league earlier in the year when Cork won.
Yeah, well, listen, it's probably just a reflection of because Cork have beaten Kerry. But listen, it's a little bit like everyone laughed at this. It wouldn't have surprised me if Limerick had beat Tip in the last round. It wouldn't have surprised me, and it still wouldn't surprise me on Sunday if Tip beat Cork. It wouldn't be, for me, Shane, that wouldn't be a monumental shock. And to be honest with you, what was it? Did someone say the last time Tipperary won the All-Ireland, they beat Cork in the final and then beat Dublin in the All-Ireland final? Was that it? So
yeah, well,
it could be the year. No, but hey, listen, Shane, all joking aside, like Tipperary football has come on so much, and for me, I go back to, I'm not sure you can quote me on the right year here. It was 2015. They got to an All-Ireland semi-final,
16.
And played. Clare got to an All-Ireland quarter-final the same year, and Tipperary played some wonderful football. But I just feel Tipperary deep down have to be looking from the outside in, thinking we're never going to get a better chance to get to an All-Ireland final. That's what they've got to be looking at.
Hold on, a first Munster title since 35 would do. Before we start talking about All-Ireland final.
Oh, sorry, All-Ireland semi-final, apologies. And they're never going to get a better chance. They're never going to... They were in an All-Ireland semi-final 5 or 6 years ago, Shane, playing brilliant football. This is some chance for them, an unbelievable chance. And as you say, if they win Munster on Sunday, there'll be a Shabeen Open in Tipperary on Sunday night somewhere.
I'm joined by 2012 All-Ireland winner Mark McHugh to talk all about Cavan against Donegal, the Ulster final this weekend. Obviously it's a bit of a family affair, of course, with your brother Ryan playing. But even just growing up and your dad, how old were you when your dad took over the Cavan football job? And obviously ultimately took them to the Ulster title in '97. But do you remember him being manager of Cavan?
I do and I don't, Shane. It's kind of... It's a very vivid memory. I wouldn't have the best memory when it goes back that length. Obviously, you have photos and you have videos. There's a YouTube clip there. I think me doing an interview with him after the Ulster final with Marty Morrissey and stuff like that. But it's not something that's really planted in my memory. But no. Dad went up there in '95, so I was only 5 at that stage. Ryan was just born. I remember Dad saying one of the reasons why he actually left Cavan in '97 is because Ryan didn't recognise him when he came through the door, that kind of way, because he was so young, and obviously being an inter-county manager, you have to put so much time and effort into it, and Cavan being, we would have been 2.5 to 3 hours away from Cavan. Living, so there's a lot of days Dad would have stayed down, and he just wasn't about to. But that's what it takes to be an inter-county manager. He put anything he would have put total commitment, time, and effort into. And he's still very involved in Cavan. As well, he's lots of friends up there. He goes up to watch a lot of the club matches and stuff like that. And he loves the Cavan people, what they give him, and I suppose they love him for what he give to them, back then, because they haven't won one since. So, he's it's if there's any other county, I think in Ireland, bar Donegal, that he would like to see do well, it would be Cavan, and anytime we play, he does go up during the week before, just for a bit of banter and stuff, and you go down in the following week for another bit of banter. But it's it is, obviously it's a family affair, Ryan being involved, but we've some great memories of Cavan, and as, no more so than him. Cavan probably the second county I'd like to see do well as well, because they're just football mad up there.
Yeah, and do you have many memories of playing against Cavan while you were with Donegal?
I do have a few memories. Yeah, we played them in 2012 up there in Cavan. Breffni, we played them in I remember we played them in 2011 as well up there. So there's 2 years in a row I think we played them up there, wasn't it? hope I'm right about that. I think I am. But I remember the first day Paddy got the goal. I kicked him the ball in for the goal in 2011, and 2012 was a kind of a different game. I remember Michael Murphy was missing that day through suspension or something. But yeah, I think that was the two. We had big battles against Cavan at underage level. Under minor, under 21. They were really, really formidable side at the time. I think they were got to 5 finals in a row, and it's listen. We usually come out the wrong side of it. We beat them in 2010 in the Ulster final. You players like David Gibney, Gordon Kieran, Eugene Keaton, and stuff like that. They would have been playing back then, and I was in college with the lads at the time, and I remember beating them. We went on that year to the Ireland final. We lost in Breffni Park actually against Dublin, but yeah, that was a good day. That I remember that game against Cavan. But yeah, so it's mainly good days I've had against Cavan, and to be fair to that Donegal team, bar taking away maybe a few under 21 things at senior level this last number of years. We played Cavan only 2 or 3 years ago in Ballybofey as well. And we beat them that day, so we've a good record against them.
Yeah, they're sort of interested in form lines coming in, because Donegal won a narrow game against Tyrone, who would be, in the top 6, we'll say, in the country anyway, broadly speaking. Whereas Cavan had to go all the way against Monaghan, but they came well from well behind to win that, and they were 1-9 to 2 points ahead behind, I think, against Down before coming back. So they're a really dogged side. Obviously, they have good players too, but whereas Donegal, I think, beat Armagh handsomely enough. You were probably at that game, were you, as well? Do you have any thoughts?
I was.
Yeah.
And you have to. It's that old cliche saying about was Donegal that good or was Armagh that bad that day? And it's usually somewhere in the middle. But Donegal were very, very impressive. You have to say, from number 1 to all the sub number 1 to 20, nearly whoever came on, really blew Armagh out of the water. They no answers to them, and I was disappointed in Armagh. I thought they would bring a lot more to the table than they did. They didn't score from play to the 48th minute, and any senior game you're going to play club or county, if you do that, you're not going to be in with much of a chance. You need to be tipping away, and they were in the game for the first, say, 12, 13 minutes, didn't take their chances, had a lot of wrong, their shot selection wasn't good in my view, and they did a lot of decision making wasn't good either. And at that stage of the game where they needed to stay in the game, they could have opened up maybe a 2 or 3 point lead for themselves, and just before the water break and after the water break, Donegal went into to probably third and fourth gear and just blew them out of the water. It was probably the game was over at half time. But I was at the Tyrone game as well, and what really impressed me about the Tyrone game with Donegal was that I suppose that the character, the fighting attributes that they brought to the game. They they were down 5-1 at the start, came back, to go ahead. They conceded the goal then, through an uncharacteristic mistake, but they just pushed it aside. And in the past, I don't know would that have happened, and they pushed it aside, and that was it was a bad day. It was a really bad day, and it was hard to come back after conceding a goal like that. But they did, and again they romped home against Tyrone. Cavan, yeah, you're right. There were 8 points down at half-time against Down and 7 against Monaghan. So they've been labelled, I think, these comeback kings. And you have to give them, you're on about character, and you have to give them every plaudit, hey, for what they've done in the last 2 games. If I was their opposition, I would be looking more at myself and how you actually let teams like that back into a game. Monaghan would be very, very disappointed, and Cavan probably could have goal chances there in the second half to put them away as well, and they didn't do it. So at that level you have to take them chances. And to be fair to Cavan, they fought and they dug in, and both days, it was really the first game was, I remember I was sitting here watching it with Ryan, and it was they went to extra time, and then the 2 frees at the end. Began kicked the free, and we're like, right, we're going to see penalties here, and then Galligan came up and kicked an unbelievable kick. So you have to give them full credit for where they're at, and even though they got relegated, they're in 2 Ulster finals in a row. And that shows progress for them, and they'll be happy. Mickey Graham and Darren McCabe's in there, and they're doing the best job they can. And listening to them and they're introduced, I'm not saying they didn't care about the league, but it wasn't their main focus. Their main focus was that first game against Monaghan, and they passed that with flying colours. So it's obviously it's a funny build up, hey, because it's not there's nobody can go to the games and stuff like that, but it's still Donegal's going for 3 in a row, which hasn't been done in this county before, so it's a huge achievement probably for both teams. For Cavan to be back in their second one and Donegal going for 3 in a row, it's a big achievement.
But the weapons that Donegal have, the fact that Paddy McBrearty and Oisin Gallen aren't even starting, they'd be starting in most counties without a doubt. And then like Peadar Mogan comes in and he looks like a left-footed Jack McCaffrey. Kieran Thompson is really stepping up. Michael Langan looks unbelievable. And that's before you talk about Michael Murphy, your own brother Ryan, Jamie Brennan. I mean, you have weapons everywhere.
They do, and and to be fair to the Donegal squad, or to be fair to the Donegal management team, they're a seriously well drilled outfit. They're seriously well coached, and what they brought, I think, this last year is that depth within their squad, so that they can take these boys off the bench, that'll just replace the people who are on, and it's no real difference. And if you look, obviously Dublin, this last number of years, one of their biggest strengths is their bench, and if you look at different games throughout Dublin's 5 in a row, where teams were with them, say, to 50-55 minutes, and then they start taking on their play, taking on their bench, and they're bringing that freshness to it. That's where they kind of creep away from other teams. Obviously Kevin McMahon was their super sub for many years, but they were the kind of players they were bringing on, and thankfully Donegal have it at the moment with their squad. I feel, probably looking over his last, say 2, 3, 4 years, Donegal could have been labelled a one-man team, a two-man team, and teams going out against them would figure out, okay, if you take out Michael Murphy, if you take out Ryan McHugh, if we man-mark them and we keep them quiet, we'll go a long, long way to winning the game. And it was probably the way it was done, was at the game in Mayo last year, where Mayo kind of, put a lot of emphasis on marking, Keegan. Keegan was on Murphy, you had Paddy Durkin who was on Ryan, and they had both, quite enough days. And Donegal, kind of, they had looked to them as leaders, and when they weren't going well, it was hard for the other ones to, roll in behind them. But that's not the way it is this year, which is, huge credit to the players, to the management team, that, take the Tyrone game, for example, where Michael Murphy and Ryan McHugh were both well marshalled. It's not that they didn't have big games, they both played well. And but they just, they probably set themselves a very high standard. But you had other people then stepping up. You had your Michael Langans, your Kieran Thompsons, your Jamie Brennans, your Hugh McFaddens, your Peadar Mogans, and that's all positive for Donegal going forward. Whatever about this year, even I know there's big there's big talk of Donegal, challenging the Dubs. They have a big game this weekend first, which they'll be focused on. That's one thing about Donegal. They'll never get ahead of themselves. I've been involved in that management setup, and they will not let you get ahead of yourself. It's game by game. So, complacency doesn't factor, in my opinion, within that squad. But going forward in the next 2 or 3 years, to see these players, developing and becoming their own players and really leading from the front, that's huge positive for Donegal.
Yeah, what do you think the impact of Stephen Rochford has been? Because, when you think about it, he's arguably the most experienced manager left in the competition. Yeah,
totally agree, and I kind of, I don't really like to ask too much questions about what's going on within the squad to any of the lads, to Ryan or to any of the lads, because, when I was involved, you didn't like being asked questions, you didn't like being, because firstly, you probably just lie. And then secondly, you don't want to be telling anybody, and you don't want to be putting anybody on the spot. So, just chatting to them on the off season, they've said Rochford has brought so much. To be fair to Declan Bonner, he went out and he seen maybe where they needed to work, and he brought him in. I wasn't involved with Stephen Rochford in the time, but Carl Lacey was there, and Paul McGonigal, Gary Boyle, Declan Bonner. Carl Lacey, in my opinion, he's one of the best coaches I've ever had. He's so well drilled. He doesn't leave any stone unturned. And, I would imagine him and Rochford working together is just, defensive, attacking, whatever you want to do, I want to say. But they seem to really, really got it right. And it's funny being at games. I'm lucky enough, I'm in the position where I'm doing a wee bit of work for Ocean FM, that I'm allowed to go to the games. And I'm very grateful for that. But it's funny being at the games now where you don't hear crowds. You can hear a lot more coaching from the sideline. Kieran McGeeney was actually just standing right down in front of me the last day. And you could hear everything he was obviously shouting onto the field. You could hear what Rochford was saying, you could hear what Lacey was saying, and it's just it's an eye opener, you know, as a young coach myself, like trying to make me name in the game. It's valid learning, you know, to see what they're doing. And if you wouldn't get that if crowds were at the match, you know, they would be shouting obviously, but you wouldn't hear it. So as I said, Donegal, in my opinion, are such a well-drilled outfit. Like they're, as I said, they're like a wash machine. They just keep going round and round. Like the Tyrone game, if something happens that, you know, it's a mistake, mistakes happen, move on, next ball, and it's down to the fine tee with them. You know, even, you know, they're breaking ball in the middle of the field. I go back there, you know, obviously I would say you watched The Last Dance, did you? Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, you seen Dennis Rodman, how he studied Michael Jordan's rebounds off, you know, the way he shot and the way he knows the way it was going to rebound off the basket or off the board or whatever. He'd be in that position. Like, you know, I'd imagine teams are doing that right now. You know, they study kickouts, they study who's going to break the ball, where it's going to break to, and you know, that just doesn't happen that you're in the right place all the time. Players learn this. They take techniques off their two midfielders or the two half forwards or something like that. And as I said, there's no stone left unturned, I'd imagine, within that Donegal set up right now. And it's, you know, it's as I said, it's so positive. But yeah, it's positive going forward for Donegal definitely in the next number of years.
Yeah, and obviously without giving away the game plan or anything like that, when you hear these managers shouting in at the moment, do you think are they actually changing formation, tactics, stuff like that mid-flow, and can you see that the teams are reacting maybe more than they would have when there's crowds there?
Yeah, well, you know, coaching has gone on the field for a number of years. We never heard it. You know, obviously I played at a high level where you get direction from a manager or a coach and you do it. Like, nobody probably within the whole stadium realizes what you're doing. But when you're at the games, you of course, you know, they've plans A, they plan A, they plan B, they plan C. We're going to try this for 5 minutes of a game. We're going to try this for 10 minutes a game. We're going to, you know, change our setups, and that there's being laid out to the players. And just you know, when they're roaring on the field, of course you can hear it, you know, and if you pick up on it, you'll be able to see it. I'm not going to say anything there've been any team is saying, but you know, that's just the nature of the game, and it's just the way it is this year with no crowds.
Yeah, and this weekend then, are you expecting Donegal to see it through, or are there things you're worried about from Cavan?
Yeah, listen, yeah, you know, Cavan's a gritty team, you know, and as I said, they fought back and every time. Now, I can't see if Cavan give Donegal the lead that they give Monaghan. If they give the lead to give down to Donegal, I think it's game over. You know, I have to admit, I can't see Donegal, you know, getting complacent, or they'll just be able to. They'll be able to suss it out and see it out. You know, you could see the way the game against Armagh was going to go. The game was over at half time. Donegal were very patient. They let Armagh come on to them and they tapped away easy scores. And, you know, it's probably something like that. Cavan against Monaghan, I was shocked, as in they left it so long to press up in the Monaghan kick out. You know, I couldn't see a way back to them, even with maybe, you know, 10 minutes to go. They only decided after the second water break, we'll push up, and that's how they nearly got back in the game. Do Cavan give Donegal their kick out? You know, as I said, Kieran McGeeney was in front of me, and he was just shouting at his players. You know, I don't mind giving away Armagh's tactics, but he was shouting at his players about watching over the top. You know, they were really worried about Donegal over the top. So what was happening was Donegal was just picking out short kick-outs. They're getting their into the game. They were getting on possession, and then, you know, they had to make a decision then to push up in their kick-outs. And we've seen what Sean Patton, who's been a huge plus for Donegal over the last number of years, what he can do then is take the Tyrone game where he briefs the ball down 60, 70 yards. We get a goal from it, and that's totally, you know, that's what Donegal has in armour. So does Cavan make a decision? Right, we'll give them the kick-outs. We'll let them come on to us. We'll try to break them down. We'll get numbers back. Or do we try to go? Do we try to take them on man to man, stop their short kickouts, and then hope, you know, that we try to get back? So Cavan can't give Donegal a lead that they've given other teams, in my opinion. But you know, it'll be interesting to see. I do think, though, Shane, you know, going on form, you know, as I said, Cavan were relegated Division 3, and they were playing probably weaker teams, no more so than the Armagh thing. I said before the Armagh game, it's hard to beat that there, you know, Division 1, when you're playing against the top teams in the country, your Kerrys, your Galways, your Mayos, your Dublins, Tyrones, and it's very hard to beat that, you know. And Donegal had that obviously at the start of the league, and then there was the break at the end of the league. So just for pure intensity of them games and just what Donegal have at the minute. If you look back to last year's game, Cavan have lost a number of players from them, and in my opinion, this is again, it's only my opinion, Cavan probably are not as good as a team as they were last year, where Donegal are probably a bit better. And Donegal, I think it ended up maybe a 4 or 5 point game last year, but it was Donegal with total control the whole game. It was a 4 or 5 point hammering, if you want to say that. So going in that game and the way Donegal are playing this year, I can't see anything but Donegal won. But as I said, there'll be no complacency within the squad. They'll be just looking at this game, getting over it, and then whatever happens after that happens.
Yeah, and then one final question: do you think there's much difference between Donegal, Mayo, Dublin? Are Dublin still number one, basically?
Yeah, of course they are. They haven't been beat. Dublin, you can. Dublin were trying a lot of new things. Obviously, the new manager, the new backroom team, whatever, since Jim Gavin left, and they've been trying new things throughout the league. So you can't really, go in too much depth to them. They've been, the 2 games they played already, Westmeath and Laois, they were very comfortable in both games. They controlled both games. So Dublin have been and are at that level this last number of years. It takes the Kerrys, the Donegals, the Trones and Mayos, whatever, to get to that level. Now, Donegal are definitely going in the right direction. Are they at that level yet? I'm not 100% sure, and we'll not know until we actually, if we get to play them or not. But I'll say that it's probably, the gap is closing a wee bit, but yeah, Dublin are still number one, and they will be number one until they're beat. The only good thing about it is Donegal will beat them last, so that's one positive for us.
It is indeed. All right, brilliant stuff, Mark. Really appreciate you joining me.
Good man, Shane.
Stephen Poacher joins me to talk about the Leinster football final between Dublin and Meath. Dublin's win over Laois, it was a proper battering, really. For a finish, the scoreline ended up Dublin 223, Laois 7 points. How much can we read into that game before we even talk about Meath?
Nothing, Shane. Nothing. Disappointed with Laois. I was disappointed because they actually did okay in their own kickouts, which was surprising. They did okay in their own kickouts. They had a decent inside forward line on paper. They kicked some nice scores early on, but even the body language, Shane, when the goal went in, it just was like, that's it, and there was just no fair. And like Mike Kirk came out after it and he says, we come up here to have a right goal today, and I just felt to myself, like, it must be difficult for a manager to come out with that narrative. We come up here to have a goal. Like, what is having a goal? What is it like? And I think it's difficult to analyse Leinster at the minute because, and I said this to you last week, my concern, Shane, is that Dublin are ahead of the pack. Everyone knows that, right? But why do we continually bang the same drum over and over again? And I said this to you as well, like, if you can consistently keep telling yourself that, they can never be beaten, they're too good, and yes, they have a lot of things in their favour, a lot of factors in their favour. They're a wonderful side, the best coach side we've ever seen, but like, can somebody go and make themselves competitive against them, even for half? And this is what you're asking. There just seems to be a complete acceptance now. How many we're going to be beaten by? And it must be difficult for teams, but we can't really read much into the performance. I didn't think it was a brilliant Dublin performance, even though they won, so convincingly. I'm just not overly convinced, Shane, that they are at the same level this year as they've been in previous years. I just don't think they can be. Yeah. Now, at the flip side of it is, I think Leinster's probably the weakest it's ever been. you look at Kildare's capitulation at the weekend, and again, pitiful second half from them. Some of the defending, Shane, was absolutely, like, when you watch that back, genuinely watch that back, it literally was, you're looking at it thinking to yourself, like, how is this senior inter-county standard? How is this a provincial semi-final? Because the defending was shambolic. Absolutely shambolic, and there has to be serious question marks. There has to be serious question marks over Jack O'Connor. There has to be serious question marks over Kildare as a group. There has to be. Look at the video at the end of the game, Shane, where the final whistle goes. They've just been beaten by 9 points, and Daniel Flynn standing in the middle of the field, laughing and joking with Meath players, like, and how much does it mean to you? Daniel is a good lad, and I've met him once. He seems to be a nice fella, a lovely chap, great footballer. But just the final whistle goes, Shane. Like, do you want to see that? And I think that just epitomises everything about Leinster at the minute. And the teams have nearly just said, look, it's a day out for us, and I think Meath will win with a different approach. I think Meath do have a bit more about them. Andy McHugh has been there a long time. He's a proud manager. Colin Nally's a shrewd coach. They've looked at Dublin. Deep down, behind the scenes, I can tell you now, from speaking to Colin, they will give Dublin their fill of it, and they'll want to give Dublin their fill of it. And hopefully we will see a contest on Sunday.
Yeah, poor and all as Kildare were. I'm going to play devil's advocate for Daniel Flynn and just give an example from Donegal 2009. I don't know if you remember, Cork battered Donegal. I think it was 2009. And on the sideline you could see Colin McFadden, and he was smiling, and people were giving out stink, but he'd actually been given a trophy for his 100th appearance or something. So we just don't know why he was smiling or laughing. It could have been...
Oh, no, hey, listen, it's probably I'm not being too hard on him in particular, Shane, but it's just not something that I would like to see as a manager, as a coach, coming in, having experience of managing and coaching, at every level of the game. I wouldn't like to see that with my players just after the final whistle. I think it would be hurtful, for even for players that are in the team as well. But it was actually, you're right in what you say. It was 2010, and Armagh had been beat out the gate in Crossmaglen. Poor John Joe Doherty at the time was manager, and he was trundling off the pitch, and the RTE cameras were watching the Donegal subs coming off the pitch, and they were laughing and joking. And this is the point I'm probably going to come to now. A year later, that exact same group of players, under a different manager who installed a different psyche, a different mindset, a different culture, under the different man, the following year, that group were a kick of the ball away from an All-Ireland final. And the following year then went on to win the All-Ireland final. And that's the thing you wonder. Is it a management thing? Is it a player thing? Is it a mixture of everything? It's hard to know, Shane. It's hard to put your finger on it with Kildare. They're so frustrating. And like 10-4 up at half-time on Sunday. And, we get a lot of criticism. I got a lot of criticism last week for calling them out, and about the high opinion they have themselves as a footballing county. And they do. You do, and I think the opinion is there. And I think you need to look at where are we at now? You're in Division 2, and you're in Division 2 for a reason. And you're struggling in Division 2 for a reason. So they have a lot of work to do in Kildare over this winter. They have a lot of soul searching and a lot of work to do. And it'll be interesting to see how they go forward as a group. Whether Jack O'Connor stays or not will be interesting.
Yeah, and just to even take on that point you said about the switch being flicked with Donegal from one year to the next, and the change of psyche, and that can it work the opposite way then, that like maybe people are clutching at straws because they want Dublin to no longer continue to win the All-Ireland. We're all tired of it, I suppose, if we put it that way. We'd like to see someone else win it. And the fact that they're only 3-2 ahead by the first water break against the Laois team that we all expected them to beat handily enough, and obviously they did for a finish. But do you see any signs that maybe that switch could be flicked in the opposite direction for Dublin?
I just think the freshness that they've brought in, Shane, has made a big difference to their team. They've brought in fresh faces. I think those lads are hungry. Whether those lads are at the level of a Jack McCaffrey, is yet to be seen, or a Damon Conley, it's yet to be seen. I don't think they are at that level. But then we're talking about really, I suppose I'm really being harsh there, because we're talking about real special players there, when we talk about that. So, but listen, I think if there is, and no one's mad that says, like, if there is a year to catch Dublin, it is going to be this year. They're not going to be caught in Leinster. Okay, they'll win on Sunday. It's a hard game to analyse because they've been so dominant. But then the last team to beat them in Leinster was Meath, and I think if I'm right in saying that they scored 5-9 to beat them. So I have said this to you so many times here before: to beat Dublin, you need goals, and there is goals in Meath. But the problem Meath probably have defensively is, can they keep Dublin to that 18, 19, 20 points? Because there's 20 points in Dublin every week to play. I've
had a few arguments with people. I think Meath are properly a common team, and this isn't just again trying to be wise after the event. I've been kind of saying it for a while. Throughout the League One campaign this year, they were only hammered once, and that was way back at the start of the year, and that was by Donegal. 10 points, give or take, was the scoreline. Otherwise, the score differential was very good. They lost nearly every game except the last one, which was a draw against Monaghan, if I remember correctly. I was impressed at them in Parnell Park against Dublin, which is obviously very different to Croke Park. They've put up 12 goals in 2 games, came from 6 behind to beat Kildare well for a finish. I mean, to me, they're a seriously coming team. I'm not saying they're going to win, but they're a seriously coming team.
Well, there's an interesting point you've just made there now. Okay, I agree with you about Meath, and I've been in this show where you have praised Meath so many times before, right? And they are, and I like Colm as a coach. He's a good coach. He's an innovator. He shares his ideas, which a lot of inter-county coaches don't do, and I like that about him. You know, he's not afraid to put himself out there. And I'll be honest with you, Shane, you made a very valid point there about Parnell Park, okay? And I'm going to give you a stat here. Laois have played Dublin 35 times in the championship, okay? And not once have they played them in Portlaoise. Now that for me is just it's downheartening. You know, it's sickening. At least we're doing their cool down on Sunday, and Dublin subs were doing a conditioning session up and down the field, which was for me is utterly disrespectful. I wouldn't do that with an under 14 and under 16 team. You know, I remember winning school games in the past. You know, really comfortably semi-finals, and the team not being out of their second gear. And I remember waiting till the opposition got on the bus to go home, and we would have done a wee bit of tackling, and we would have played a small-sided game just to get the boys going, and you know, to make them feel as if they'd worked really hard that day. But you don't do it in front of the team after.
Why should they care? Why should Dublin care about Laois? They're gone at this stage. They're only looking after their own team. They're only interested in themselves. That's it. But
it's the, I think, Shane, the point I'm trying to make probably is the equality of the whole thing. You know, if that was a Laois or a Longford or a Carlow and their players decided to do a bit of running, the groundsman would be straight over saying, get off the field. I've been there with Carlow 2 or 3 times, and we were like, you're literally, you know, you're not allowed on the field until a certain time. You're not allowed to warm up here, not allowed to warm up there. There's a warm-up room inside that they can use to do their cool down. You know, you can do that, you know. And listen, it's a small thing, and I'm not nitpicking here, but I just feel that every advantage is in their corner, and it's very difficult. And that's why I'd love to see a provincial final in Leinster played elsewhere. You know, if that game was played for talk's sake in Portlaoise, would we be thinking of a different game? I think we would be. You know, there's no question about it.
We probably would be. When I think about how many goals Meath have put up in the last couple of games, like 12, 7 of them against Wicklow, and you expect them to beat Wicklow well, but you don't necessarily expect them to score 7 goals, and then 5 against Kildare, and I know you've questioned them, but still in all, that's really impressive. But then I think about how many goals Cork put up last year, and that game against Laois and Thurles when they put up 4, and I thought they were mesmeric that day. And then their inside forward line of Brian Hurley and Mark Collins couldn't really get on the ball at all. Luke Connolly did a bit, couldn't really get on the ball against Dublin when they played them at Croke Park. So was there a fair chance that Meath's greatest strength, which is scoring at the moment and goals in particular, will be completely taken away and we won't see a single goal?
Well, you can bet your bottom dollar that Dublin will be well prepared for that, Shane. You know, there's no surprise now. You know, they're looking at Meath, 7 goals against Wicklow. No team should really concede 7 goals at inter-county level. You know, let's be honest, like it's underage stuff. You know, it's underage stuff. There's nobody should be conceding that volume of goals at senior level. You know, and Kildare the same, 5 goals. And as I said to you, some of the defending for the goals, Shane, was comical, and that's my only concern. It wasn't as if Meath were scything Kildare open. A lot of them are coming from silly mistakes, turnovers, sloppy passes. Dublin just won't do that, Shane. They just don't. They're just too well oiled. They're too well drilled. You know, they're too methodical, as I said last week. You know, they're just so well organised, and I just can't see them making those level of mistakes. So for me, you know, it's one-way traffic on Sunday, unfortunately, and I can't see any other winner, Shane.
And it was 117-4 last year, but this is maybe you don't want to make too much out of this, but Meath did keep into Dublin for a long stage of the first half, but they only scored a point, and I think Dublin got 4 or 5. But it was, if I remember correctly, James Conlon was the diminutive forward. He was the lone man up front with 0 support and 50-50 ball kicked into him, so he had an impossible task. Whereas this year, it feels like they've a bit more power up front. Shane Walsh, Thomas O'Reilly, who, if I remember correctly, he was taken off last year. He was brought on and taken back off again last year when Meath played Clare down in Portlaoise. They don't have Mickey Newman this year. But the point is that it feels like they've got a bit more power up front. Those lads are scorers. Jordan Morris has come in as well. He looks like a decent player at this level too. So are they not a slightly better proposition than they were a year ago?
Oh, they are, and what they have, Shane, as well, is they've probably learned from the Leinster final last year. And you're right in what you say. You know, people on the outside would probably laugh at us for saying this, but the first half that Meath put in last year in the Leinster final wasn't that far away. It wasn't that far away, you know. And I know the second half fizzled out, but it was the level of belief probably that fizzled out more than anything, you know. And listen, you're completely correct in what you say. And the other thing was as well, and I listened to Andy McEntee's interview the other day as well. A lot of those lads in Meath were playing in Croke Park for the first time, so it's really advantageous that they've got it's advantageous for them that they've got that game, because Croke Park for the first time for a lot of players can be very daunting, can be very intimidating. Even the choice of studs, and I know that sounds very simplistic, but even the choice of studs for a player, you know, knowing what footwear to wear, you know, knowing exactly that, you know, the routine of the day, the warm-up, what change room you're going to be in, etc., and those things are important, because for a young player in particular going to Croke Park for the first time, you can be nearly a little bit starstruck, and you're looking up at the stand, and you know, it's an eerish atmosphere. But it was very interesting Sunday when Dublin scored the goal against Laois. There wasn't a sound. There wasn't even a celebration from the Dublin players, you know, and it was strange and eerie, you know, and hopefully Shane on Sunday, you know, Meath can get off to a really good start. Who knows? You know, Evan O'Carroll smashed the underside of the crossbar on Sunday after a minute, or after a couple of minutes. If that had gone in, it might have given Laois a little bit of life. It might have kept them in the game for a bit longer. But if Meath could get off to a really good start, you know, kick a couple of early scores, you know, just cause a little bit of trouble in that Dublin defence. Who knows? But let's be honest, you know, we're dealing with an absolute juggernaut here.
Yeah, and I mean, it could be a 15 points win for Dublin, but I think of all the turnovers that Meath won in Parnell Park, and I think if they can manage that, maybe there's a chance to get yourself in the game. Maybe this is wishful thinking, because I'd love to see a brilliant Leinster final, and I'm going to be going into it. But then I look at the bench that Dublin brought on the last day: Paul Mannion, Cormac Costello, Davy Byrne, Brian Howard, Philly McMahon. It's like no matter what happens, a bit like Mayo in the All-Ireland finals and other teams that have played them over the years, ultimately you might even keep with them for 55 minutes, but then the subs you bring on comparatively, they're bringing on lads who are all-star level, and you're bringing on lads who are a step down.
Yeah. No, listen, Shane, go back to your point about the Leinster final. I'd love to see a competitive Leinster final. I go back to when I was in my mid-20s, which is a long time ago now, but myself and a friend used to go up on the train every year. That was our day out. You know, we it was nearly a ritual. And for 7 or 8 years, we would have got the train from Newry to Dublin. We got our hands on a couple of premium tickets. We would have had a few beers, a few pints, and we would have watched the Leinster final. It was a great day out. It was a great occasion. It was normally around about the first weekend in July or second weekend in July. The weather was always good. It was a day out in the capital, you know, and I really enjoyed that. And you could see, Shane, and that's come back a number of years ago when Leinster was really competitive, and you know, we were at that Meath game ourselves actually, but there was other days, Shane, too, as well, where Dublin did win, but it was still in the mix. You know, there was Laois were good, Kildare were good, you know, they were competitive, and you know, you had teams, maybe even Westmeath were there for a couple of years in a row and kept themselves very competitive for a while, and there were always good occasions, but you could just sense even the attendance of Shane over the years that have dropped. And I would say if supporters were allowed in on Sunday, Shane, you wouldn't break 50,000. There wouldn't be 50,000 in the ground. You know, you'd be talking about 35,000 max. You know what I mean? And for a provincial final, it's disappointing. You know.
Stephen, Cavan are going to face Donegal in the Ulster final this Sunday, but of course your down team really left it behind them on Sunday, because you're 1-9-2 ahead. Really should be in that Ulster final. Before we jump on to how brilliant Donegal are after their dismantling of Armagh, what about down? Do you put that more down to your own county leaving it behind them, or Cavan and a brilliant fight back?
Well, Shane, I would say if you went back through the game, you could write a catalogue of things that went wrong for Down, you know, at different stages of the game. Obviously not taking their chances, you know. But then on the flip side of that, you can talk about really desperation in the Cavan defence. I think back to a moment in the first half of Paddy Faulkner diving on Jerome Johnson's boot. I think it was Jerome Johnson or Keelan Doherty diving on his boot at 7-8 points down, you know, as if his life depended on it, you know, and those match-winning blocks, those real doggedness to hang in there and cling in there and give themselves a chance. By all accounts, it was a little bit of a breeze in athletic grounds that you wouldn't have noticed on TV. So we have to give, you know, a little bit of that to Cavan as well, that they were able to kick points in the second half. But at the same time, Shane, a lot of it came down to game management. And I was actually shocked at how Down approached the first 10 minutes of the second half. For me, Shane, you're 9 points up at half time or 8 points up. The first thing you've got to be saying to the players is, lads, for 10 minutes, nothing happens. The top teams do this, Shane. Even Dublin will do this. Even Donegal will do this. The top teams have make no apologies for making the game attritional for 10, 15 minutes and for nothing to happen. Control possession, get your hands on the ball. And it comes back to the leadership thing. I look at the leaders in the Cavan team, the Faulkners, the Bradys, the Groyd McKiernans. They stepped up when it mattered, Shane. And we had a lot of leaders in the first half who were flying, who were on the front foot. But in the second half, when we needed some of those men to go and win a ball, to go and break a ball, to dive on a Brock ball, to take control of the game. And I actually tweeted when the penalty went in, we now need leadership and control. And it didn't happen. It was frantic. It was sporadic. We were trying to play at 100 miles an hour the whole time, and it was frustrating, and it really annoyed me because it was a great down performance. The first half was as best of football I've seen down play in probably 10 years, since 2010. It was absolutely perfect. Front foot, counter attack, running at them. I said to you last week, let them off the leash, and he did let them off the leash. But then it was, go back to Paddy's old style of containment. Get back in, sit tight. Let's control the game. And it didn't happen. And Shane, I think last week on the show, I expressed my concerns to you over our kick-out strategy. And the kick-out strategy at Down Prefer is this kick-out strategy here, where you have a block of 4 on the sideline, and we like to kick the ball into the block consistently and take our chances on the break. And the thinking behind that is that it's low risk. But for me, and I said this to you before, your kick-out strategy should be a platform for you to launch attacks from. And people were questioning, what could Down have done differently? Well, there's a number of ways, and we've spoken about this. I'm not going to go over old ground, Shane, but from a kick-out strategy, if you overload your full back line, if a team presses you and you overload your full back line, you have an extra option as a goalkeeper, but you also draw the opposition in as well. So you should have more space out here. If you create a spine out the middle of the field, you should have space either side to kick the ball into people running into. And I just felt there was a whole combination of things. I felt sorry for Rory Burns, and I texted Rory on Monday morning just to sort of console him and say, look, keep your head up, because he got a lot of criticism himself, the lad. He's only a young lad. He's not a goalkeeper by trade. He's a midfielder for his club. He has done nets in the past, but it's not just Rory's responsibility. It's not just a goalkeeper's responsibility. It's a collective responsibility.
Yeah, and just for people who wouldn't have seen that, obviously a place ball went in and Rory spilled it, but Conor, and it ended up in the net. But Conor Madden had gone out of the field of play for Cavan, and I would say definitely knocked it out of his hands or away from Rory a little bit there. So you felt very much like, if I'm looking at it, and obviously I have no relation to either county here, I would be thinking there's just nobody stepped up in the full back line there for Rory, or close to goals, or they should have been clean in house one way or the other. The bigger, more dominant goalies, I would say, probably would have dealt with that. And I'm not trying to be unfair to him, but I just do think that the more dominant guys do look after that.
Yeah, I seen someone on Twitter or something or whatever making a comment that he maybe could have punched it out towards the sideline or whatever, and if in doubt, get it out type thing, But listen, it's a collective thing, Shane, as well too. As you say, it's a collective thing. It's not just one individual. You're looking at people to step up. It's the same in kickouts. The goalkeeper needs movement. The goalkeeper needs players to be brave. When that ball goes to edge, Shane, you look at the Dublins, the Donegals, you look at the top teams, the Mayos, the cornerbacks and the halfbacks are presenting straight away. The ball has gone dead and they are presenting straight away. There's no delay. And I looked at some of the body language of the Down players when scores were going over. You could see that the heads drop, the shoulders go down, and you need to be stepping up, shoulders back, chest out, present yourself, be brave. And that's bravery, Shane. Bravery is not just going and diving on a ball. Bravery is going and demanding the ball. And I had a conversation actually yesterday with the teacher, fellow teacher in school, Kevin McClory from Mayo Bridge. Kevin would have played a bit for Down under 21s, and we were chatting about Martin Clark. And he talked about, the Down game and different things. And he says he went to watch Clark as a young lad playing schools football. And he says one of the things that struck me, Stevie, was that he wanted the ball all the time. He wanted to be on the ball. Give me the ball, presenting for every ball, Shane. And that's bravery. That's bravery just as much as the man who's putting his head on the line, going and getting the ball and taking control of it. That's bravery as well, and that was lacking on Sunday.
Yeah, we'll talk a little bit more about Cavan in just a minute, but just to reflect on our Donegal's win over Armagh, 122 to 13 points. And I was tweeting afterwards saying Donegal, pace, power and skill, most of them are huge. It's going to be hard to stop. And there's a couple of answers in there. Chris McNulty, who's a journalist up in Donegal, was making a point earlier about Donegal. Attempting to pick Bonner's best 15 now is a hard task. It's a harder guess now than it was in 2012 when they won it, obviously. He has real strength and depth there. And Frank Craig, another journalist, says, agree with the point in general, but Stephen McMenamin injury is a real concern. the losses of McFadden, Ferry and Conor Morrison, who's a serious operator, means we're a little shy now at the back. Paddy McGrath currently sidelined as well. So, and even Brendan Sweeney added, the defensive situation is worrying. Keelan Ward gets limited game time, but has always performed for Donegal. We might ever get over the final without McMenamin, badly needed if we end up meeting Dublin. So obviously, if you can take the good points of Donegal first and then talk about maybe where they might be lacking at the moment based on what those fellas have said on Twitter.
Well, listen, Donegal for me on Saturday were excellent. She and Armagh were very poor. I know McGeady was disappointed with the lack of fire and intensity that they brought. And, you know, you talk about competitiveness and you can talk about systems, Shane, and you can talk about tactics and you can talk about offensive patterns and kick-out strategies. But if you don't bring the fire and you don't bring the intensity and you don't bring the heat, then, you know, you've got very, very little. And you listen to Jim McGuinness talking about the defensive intensity of teams, and that's lacking a little bit at the minute, you know. And I think that was very evident with Armagh's play on Saturday early in the game. And, you know, that 4 or 5 minutes before half-time, they were playing against a very strong breeze. Again, managed the game, Shane, managed the game. You know, I think Donegal kicked off 1-4 in that 4 or 5 minute period before half-time. And that's game over. That is game over, you know. And one of the things about Donegal on Saturday, Shane, is their flexibility. You know, they're for me, and I'm just going to call it out now, Michael Murphy, everybody was talking about he wasn't really in the game. Michael Murphy was sensational, absolutely sensational. The small things, Shane, the small things, the things that go unnoticed. Armagh got the ball turned over in their D, 10 points down. You know, Donegal 10 points up with 7-8 minutes to go on the clock. McBurney lost the ball. Armagh's coming out with the ball, and in the bottom of the screen, you can see Michael Murphy stretching every sinew and every muscle in his body, driving back into that D. You know, berating the cornerback who's just given the ball away after that. Absolute glorious leadership, Shane. And he's leading, and the rest are following. You know, and I remember reading a great quote about from John Wooden about a great leader doesn't stand behind whipping. He's out in front with a banner. You know, and that's the sign of a great leader. Murphy stands up and he's counted. He puts the hits in. You know, he's not shy to take them. He's not shy to give them, sorry. I know he takes a lot, but he's not shy to give them, and he can hand out the punishment. And 2 minutes after that, Armagh had an attack. Oisin O'Neill skipped past a couple of people, and there's Murphy on the edge of his own 6-yard box, hitting him with a body challenge, turning the ball over and driving out with it. But Shane, 30 seconds, maybe 60 seconds later, he's actually playing inside and collecting the ball as full forward and laying it up for a score. Like, you know, I said before in the show, like the Superman t-shirt under the shirt, but he literally is everything, and he is the heartbeat of that side. And if they can keep him fully fit, they have a wonderful chance, because they've now what they have, Shane, is they've sprinkled in a lot of good footballers. Going back 6-7 years, Shane, I came up against Declan Bonner in the development squad in Garbahay, and I was bloody raging because they kept us waiting for like 25-30 minutes. It was meant to be a blitz, but they were treating it like, you know, so professionally. You know, they were doing things the really right way, and, you know, even their preparation. And it was a lot of those lads that are playing now were playing back then. And I remember playing in the game particularly and looking at their style. A lot of really, really very good footballers. And Shane, this is the thing, Donegal have a lot of good smart footballers, what I would call smart footballers, that yes, you can coach them, but you can put a team into a system. But if you don't have players who can implement that system and think on their feet, because once they cross the white line, you're relying on thinking footballers. And they have produced some really, really savage thinking footballers. But one thing they have now, Shane, is they've got pace, they've got power, you know, and they've got that real ruthlessness now up front. Like Langan's been a brilliant sign this year for them. He's been Langan for me, and I was looking at him the other night, I was thinking to myself, well, if they win Ulster, there's an all-star straight away at wing forward. You know, it has to be, because he's been absolutely sensational, you know, and the wing back, Mogan, who scored the goal, you know, the power and the pace. Jimmy Brennan picked up a ball in between 3 defenders, drove his acceleration over 5 to 10 metres was absolutely sensational. And I go back to those 6 or 7 years ago. What was Bonner doing? What was McGuinness doing? They were changing the culture in Donegal. They were installing a culture, a level of belief, a level of professionalism that a lot of other counties don't have. And I was chatting to a person who's involved in Gaelic at the minute, Shane. I'll not name them, but I was chatting to someone who's involved in county football at the minute, and they're working with a county in Ulster. And they were saying that they just got a little bit of an eye-opener into how far behind counties have fallen in their approach compared to the big guns. And that would be worrying for me, as the gap's getting very big.
Yeah, and what about Armagh overall? Like, I saw a couple of people tweeting about a photograph which Michael Murphy was on the ground, and you had a few Armagh lads kind of giving him plenty of it, letting him know about it. And that seemed to be, I don't know, was that a cheap shot at people taking a pop at Armagh because they had lost and it's easy then to have a pop at them? Or are they too focused on that sort of stuff rather than playing the game? I mean, you probably have far more exposure to them. Is there an issue there?
No, I would never have found Armagh like that. No, I would never have found Armagh. Obviously, listen, every team, Shane, see for me, Shane, every team has to have a cynicalism, has to have an edge. They've turned the ball over on Murphy. It's a big turnover. It's early in the game. Like football's a game of, it's a passion, it's emotion. It's a game of emotion. It's very hard to contain your emotions at times, and I think sometimes we're very quick to sort of single out a thing like that and hone in it and focus in it. Obviously, it didn't look pretty and they're roaring and they're squealing over him, but at the end of the day, they're celebrating a turnover in the same way that a hurler throws his fist up and smashes his shoulder into somebody's chest and roars every single turnover, and you're going to yourself like, why does hurling get a free pass in football? It gets criticised for every time there's any level of passion or aggression showed, and listen, be under no illusions, Donegal are unbelievable at it too. Like, you talk about cynicalism, like they can mix it with the best, let me tell you. And Bonners, he didn't come up with the canal in the bubble. Like, he knows himself what's going on. And listen, they roar scores, they roar turnovers. They're squealing at kickouts, they're screaming, and they're putting pressure on referees. Every top team does it, Shane. Dublin were punished a few weeks ago for squealing at a goalkeeper up in Portlaoise when they played Westmeath, and if that had been a Tyrone or an Armagh, Ulster, cynical, and so listen, all the best teams can do it, Shane, but some of them can hide it better than others. That's the difference.
Yeah, I was thinking there was an element of easy bin wise after the event in that situation. Coming like that Donegal Armagh game, one thing that really stood out was Armagh getting their kickouts destroyed, and Donegal got a lot of scores off them. And when you were previewing Down against Cavan, you said one of the areas, which was probably proven afterwards, was that Cavan would take over on the kickouts because Down were susceptible there. Going into the Ulster final, is this an area that you expect to be hotly contested, or does one team have an advantage?
Oh, there's no doubt. Like Killian Clark in the middle of the field, Gerard McKernan, Paddy Faulkner, these guys. Even you could even argue a case now, for the substitutes that came in who made a big impact as well. And Gallaghan is a strong boy. They have a lot of strong men. Cavan have a lot of strong men, Shane. And I go back to Peter Donnelly's era at Cavan, and I fully believe that this is the difference between really, really top teams, Shane, and the teams now that are floating in the middle. I think the strength and condition of teams has come on massively, particularly at the top level of the game, and a lot of that obviously boils down to financial, implications too. That counties that can have the finance to sort of back this, and also comes into a player buy-in. Like, and I know myself when we were Carlo and things like that. Like, a lot of the players were very, very under conditioned, from a strength conditioning point of view, and we had a brilliant setup. We had a really good strength conditioning coach, team, Carlo IT, all the facilities, all the access, but were players really, really buying into it? And it's too late then, nearly, Shane. You really need to get these players at a development squad level. And Peter Donnelly got his hands on Cavan at a very young age. A lot of those boys, the likes of Gerard McKernan, who's always a big lad. He's a big lad by trade anyway. But you can bet your bottom dollar that the 5 years that Peter Donnelly was there as S&C with Cavan, and Gerard McKernan was a young player and an under-21, you can bet your bottom dollar that the culture changed. The mindset changed. And young lads that come into the panel now, that culture's ingrained. Once that culture gets ingrained and nailed in a certain group, Shane, it's very, very easy then to continue it and keep it going. And that's the difference between the really top counties, your top 10, your top 8, your top 6, whatever you want to call them, and then the middle and the rest. It's just, there's a real drive and a real level of, I want to be the best, and to be the best, how do I be the best? The small things. And the strength conditioning has become such a huge part of the game now, Shane. Every team's now carrying a performance nutritionist, who's advising them on how to lean, how to bulk, how to lose, and that's the key thing too. And you've two sides now contesting Ulster final from a physical point of view, are probably two of the most physical teams in Ulster. Cavan dominated Monaghan on kickouts, which is very unusual. They've dominated Down. Okay, that might not be a massive achievement with Down's physicality, but you're coming in an Ulster final now where two teams might break even. So it'll be very interesting to see the kick-out strategy this weekend. And will teams concede kick-outs at times? Will they press every kick-out? And the battle to win that middle third could be interesting.
Yeah, and if you look at the scoreline from the Ulster final last year, Donegal scored 124 and Cavan put up 216. But it felt like, from memory, that Donegal were a little bit more ahead than that suggests. And even if you were to just pair it back to scores, it's 25 scores to 18. Did you feel that there was a big gap between the teams last year, and has it closed?
Yeah, I think Donegal, I just think Donegal are still ahead, Shane. I think they're still ahead. I think the games that Cavan have been unbelievable. I actually felt at half-time there was no way back for that Cavan side. And the reason I thought that, Shane, was simply from the point of view being the miles on the clock this year with the games they've had. But Mickey Hart made an interesting observation on BBC. He said the games will help Cavan because you get to know little things. I'm sure that Paddy Tally, was to replay that game this weekend, Paddy Tally would probably think, well, that worked and that didn't work. would he have brought on maybe a Conor McGinn or a Benny McCargill who's more experienced, who can get their hands on the ball, who slows things down, rather than a 19-year-old in young Sheila Johnson? Would that have happened? He probably would change that substitution. Would he have taken Liam Kerr off? No, he probably wouldn't have. And these are things, Shane, that you learn through games. Unfortunately, we don't have another game to learn those things, but Cavan have it games. They know what's worked. They know what hasn't worked. I'll just say one thing, Shane. If Cavan don't start the game well on Sunday, they're going to get blown out of the water, and there'll be no way back.
The counterpoint to that is that Monaghan were miles ahead on them, and so were down, and they kept going.
Very true, but in my honest opinion here now, you're dealing with a team who have been in 9 Ulster finals in the last 10 years, a team who are looking to contest All-Ireland finals, a team who have aspirations of winning an All-Ireland, and I just think that they've got too much about them. I think they've got too much leadership. I think they've got too much organisation. I think they're well drilled. Stephen Rochford's role in Donegal has been very, very undervalued. I think he's a brilliant coach. He's a shrewd operator, and I think he's made a big, big difference to them as well, Shane.
Yeah, because you could argue he's the most experienced manager left in the competition. I know he's not managing here, but he pushed Dublin so far a couple of times, 2016 and 17. He's been in the latter stages of competitions, as has James Horan. But you could argue that he is the most experienced man left here.
Yeah, listen, there's no question about it. And, Rochford's been close to beating Dublin. He's an insight into Dublin. He brings a lot of experience, as you say. He's been on the big day, and having that experience in the big day is absolutely priceless. James Horan obviously has experienced the same, and unfortunately the two of them haven't come out on the right end of things. But who knows? It's been a mad year, Shane. It could be a repeat of 2012, Donegal versus Mayo.
And if you were to say why Donegal are going to win this game, or can you make a case for Cavan in this game, how they could win it, and then you're obviously going with Donegal, so who do you think will be the difference here?
Well, you can make a case for every team in every game, and Cavan obviously have a massive amount of momentum. There'll be an awful buzz factor in their game. They've come through a really, really difficult encounter with Down. They got over a sticky tie against Antrim. Every game they've played, has been wild competitive. Every game Donegal has played so far, I know the Tyrone game obviously was a war of attrition, but the Armagh win, was a bit of a facile win, Shane. But then on the flip side of it is, it's kept them fresh, and it's kept them. They've probably limited their injuries. I know you mentioned a lot of injuries that they have at the back, which may come back to haunt them, but maybe not just this weekend.
We're joined by Stephen Poacher to talk about some of the attacking innovations that are going on in football at the moment. You've seen it in some of the different provinces, Stephen, haven't you?
Yeah, well, listen, Shane, it's nothing new, really, but it's something that, has caught my mind that, we talk about Dublin and being obviously, ahead of the pack, but probably the main contenders that have emerged from the pack are obviously Donegal at the moment. Everyone's talking about Donegal and the impressive performance against Armagh, but one of the things that I've noticed, Shane, is that there's a lot of flexibility in both teams' offensive play, particularly Dublin and Donegal's, but there's also a little bit of structure, and there's also some certain set plays that they can produce at different stages of the game. Obviously they're well documented and it's well publicised now, the Dublin backdoor cut. And it's not just the one run, Shane, it's the two runs, and I've explained on the board here. So if you can imagine Dublin attacking, obviously heading this direction here, and you've got an inside two forward line. Now, what we had was, I think it was Fenton carrying the ball through from here. Kilkenny had made his run out, okay, and the other inside forward, I think it was Conn, maybe, that possibly made a run here. But it's the Kilkenny man who's going to get the ball. But it's the opposite corner forward who actually makes this move, because what he does is he clears out of there as well. He clears out of there as well and leads the space. So what they do, Shane, is they vacate this hole in this space. Then the cornerbacks naturally follow them, and then it's a really aggressive backdoor cut, and it's the hand pass ball into space. And they got their second goal against Leeds from that. But they've been doing it now, Shane, for a number of years, and they're very, very good at it. And it is a basketball type move. You can see a basketball type psyche around their movement up front, with the width that they produce in their play as well. But you never see this area really crowded. You never see it full of bodies. You never see any panic. Everything is very rehearsed and very structured. And one thing I noticed about Donegal as well also is that when they were attacking, what they have obviously is they've got a point man. Okay, so they've got plenty of depth. But what we actually had on Saturday against Armagh, Shane, was when Armagh were set up quite defensively. Okay, Donegal had maybe two inside, maybe a Brennan and a Murphy. Okay, but they also had width on both sides of the play. And what they did very, very well at times was They transferred the ball from one side of the field to the other. So the ball came from here to here. And when it got to here, you can see your little mini overload. So this guy was being marked, okay, by the Armagh cornerback. I think it might have been James Morgan. And he's caught between two stools. Because what he has now is he's a little mini overload approaching him. But what actually happened, Shane, is one man follows his run out and drags a defender out of there. This guy on the sideline holds his run and then cuts across the play, taking the ball off the man in possession and popping a simple score from the edge of the D. And it was a beautifully rehearsed move. And it's something, Shane, that I've noticed in both teams over the weekend, in Donegal and in Dublin, is the flexibility in their attack, but also some of the lovely fluid moves that they're producing as well.
Is it the same thing over and over though? Like, is Kieran Kilkenny going to always dart out and fall back on himself every single time, and Con maybe the same at the other time? Or do they have different ways of doing it?
Well, listen, sometimes you see it coming towards the sideline. Sometimes you see them coming towards the sideline and cutting back, and even a ball kicked inside to them. That it's not just the one move of two men coming out inside and cutting back. There's different, there's a huge range of flexibility, Shane, in the way they approach this, and listen, I have to be honest, and you have to give credit where credit's due. It's so well coached. And from an analytical point of view, if you're watching the game, I watched the games back again last night. I watched them on Sunday night. I mean, you're watching Sunday night after watching a full day's viewing and after watching the down game. You should have watched the Sunday game on a Sunday night from a social point of view, and you listen to the analysis and you watch the game. But then when you sit down and you look at it from an analytical point of view and you stop it and you pause, and I like to sort of snip little videos off and send it into the lads in the club as well, just to give them a sort of a picture of it, because it's some of the stuff that you can pick up from watching these games, Shane, and particularly the top teams like Dublin and your Mayos and your Donegals. It's absolutely class, and it shows the level of detail, Shane, and the level of coaching that's going on at that level.
And if you're trying to defend against that, what do you do to stop Dublin's backdoor cut or that attacking move that you explained from Donegal?
Well, you've got to know that it's coming, but the problem is you probably don't know when it's coming, because they've got they've that many, strings to their bow, they've that much ammo. You don't know if Fenton's going to come on a charge. You don't know if they're going to go wide and open up the driving lanes. You don't know if they're going to, go wide and open up the channels for balls to be popped in. So it is a damn do you do, damn do you don't. I think you need to go in with a really, really strong defensive system early in the game, Shane. I think against Dublin, one of the key things is, and I've noticed it in the recent games that they've played, is the games have been sort of brushed aside. They've never been in a contest yet, even at half time, which is quite concerning in Leinster. That no one can even put a challenge up for 35 minutes, and it's nearly pathetic at this stage now, Shane. And even some of the body language of certain players and things like that on Sunday for Laois was pitiful, and listen, I think one of the things you've got to do in the first half, you've got to remain really, really tight. You've got to be defensively organised. I think you've got to have your +1 in there. You've got to be wary of those backdoor cuts when you're defending. Your goalkeeper's got to take responsibility too. There's got to be a lot of communication, a lot of talking, but you've got to bring the fire, you've got to bring the intensity, you've got to bring the heat. And to do that, Shane, you need to bring a savage level of energy to the game and literally really, really leave nothing out there. Nothing out there.
And are other teams doing the backdoor cut? I mean, are they not doing it across the board?
Yeah, well, listen, we try to sort of coach it. We've been trying to coach it with our own minors, quite a bit. And, you're running through patterns of play and you're getting your inside two to break out and then cut back. And the problem is that young lads, when you're doing it in training, the defender knows it's happening in training, because you're obviously explaining it, to the group. Like, so obviously then he can maybe try and cheat a little bit and stand off. But when you're marking Dublin, the problem is that you're damned you do, damned you don't. If you stand off Kilkenny and try and anticipate a backdoor cut, he just takes a ball off the man's chest, pops the ball to him, and he turns and spins and shoots because you're 3 yards away. So, and the men in the sideline are complaining you're not tight enough. But no, listen, there is other teams obviously can see this. There's other teams doing it, but it takes a very, very, probably a well disciplined team, Shane, to really implement it on a consistent basis. I seen McBurry doing one at the weekend as well when he came off the bench. He came out towards the ball and cut back along the end line, got a ball inside and popped it over the bar with his hand, a fist pass, But Dublin are probably the masters of creating goal chances from it, Shane, there's no question.
And then one thing that you brought up recently is how, and maybe this was related to the Dublin footballers, that they know which foot a player is going to kick off. And I think most defenders know that you might kick off your right, I might kick off my right, that Paul Mannion will kick off his left, but to not fall for the dummy on the right so that they can get back on their stronger foot. So do teams look at that and say, we've got to be able to defend in such a way that we know that something like a backdoor cut is coming, or to anticipate. And I know what you're saying when you're like, well, you're damned if you do, damned if you don't, because you just take it and knock it over the bar. But our defenders kind of thinking to that level across the board at all teams that sort of need to be second guessing what's coming.
Well, I go back to the Sean Marty Lockhart days of Derry when Peter Canavan was in his club. And I remember a story emerging, and whether these stories are true or not, you don't know. But I remember a story emerging from the camp that Sean Marty Lockhart had got one of the Derry players to try and simulate Peter Canavan's moves. And after training and before training, he would have literally, been shadowing the corner forward and looking to jockey him, keeping his eye on his navel, all basic sort of coaching points, Shane, that you will think, don't get drawn to the ball, because when you get drawn to the ball, I always say, don't watch the ball, watch the navel, because if you watch the ball, he shows the ball one way, you go one way, and he's away the other way. And Sean Kavanagh was a great man for that Shawnee shuffle or whatever. He would have stepped to the left and then dropped inside. And I think really good defenders, Shane, are taking that level of the game. It's a bit like the goalkeeper in the Premier League or the World Cup, and the coach comes on and shows him where the penalty takers went, the previous way. There is no question about it that at this level here and the detail that these guys are getting into, there's no question about it that, Owen Ban Gallagher, when he comes to Mark Paul Mannion in a few weeks' time, albeit if Dublin win and Donegal win, take for example an Owen Ban Gallagher versus Paul Mannion, you can guarantee your bottom dollar that Owen Ban Gallagher's watching videos of him, he's studying him, and listen, it would have happened at our level, Shane, even at Carlow, and I'm not being disrespectful, but even at that level, we would have had players asking for clips of Fenton, we would have had players asking for clips of him or her, or whatever it happened to be, and that's the key thing. Players at this level, Shane, are always looking for that fine edge and that little detail, and there's no question about it, those top teams are going right into that.
I'm joined by Leitrim manager Terry Hyland to talk about the Ulster football final between his native Cavan and Donegal. Terry, can you just tell me first off, what's the rivalry like between the two counties? Is it heated, or are they friendly rivals in Ulster?
To be friendly, to be fair, what I mean, there's always neighbouring counties anywhere you get rivalry, if it's Cavan from Anna, Cavan, Monaghan, or maybe on the Meath border. Longford not so much, but they would be the three big ones in Cavan, there's regards. Once you have a gap county in between, the rivalry is not the same.
Yeah, and just in terms of coming into this and reflecting on last year's Ulster final, which Donegal won well enough, do you feel like you're being cast as massive underdogs here?
Well, look, I suppose to be fair, Cavan slipped into Division 3 and Donegal retained Division 1 in the National League, so there is that little bit of a gap there, naturally enough, and that's over a consistent level of football. Cavan have done quite well in the run into the Ulster final. They played some good football, they played some not so good football. They've probably showed an awful lot of spirit and heart to get them where they are, more so than anything else. Yeah,
because after falling well behind against Monaghan and down, it did look fairly desperate at a couple of stages, and to win those games the way they did, that's a great sign of a team. And is it anything to do with Mickey Graham's influence?
Well, Mickey's the manager and he's his management team, and of course, I'm sure if you ask Mickey the same question, he'd say, well, he'd prefer not to be doing that. He'd prefer to have an even game that they won't put themselves into some problems at half time. And that will be the problem going forward to Sunday. If they do that against a Donegal, you probably won't see a way back from them, no matter how well they play in the second half. But this is where, and he referenced himself after the game with Down that he felt there was going to come a day when they wouldn't resurrect themselves. Yeah,
did you expect Cavan to be in an Ulster final this year, given how the league had gone and getting relegated again?
Well, I did, and again, I suppose you look at it more from a pragmatic point of view, and you look at the draw and who you've got in it. And I felt that if we got over Down, we had every chance of getting to an Ulster final, and we did. Over Monaghan in the first round, more so than Down. I felt that we had every chance. And then when the draws come round and we got to who we got, it left it open enough, left it all 50-50 games. People would have always fancied us to beat Antrim. The Down game again, people would have said it was 50-50. To be honest with you, I wouldn't have felt that. I felt that Down again coming from Division 3, and where we were 2 years ago coming from Division 1, we should have had a little bit more experience, and it probably did show on the day.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if you saw them this week, but Mickey Graham was asked about Michael Murphy getting protection, in light of the game against Armagh, and a bit of, I suppose, we'll call it sledging broadly anyway. But he goes, maybe we need protection from Michael Murphy ourselves. It seems the big teams get the big calls. Do they get the easier calls? Probably at times. The referee know all these players by first names. I'll just read a little bit more because it is interesting. And he goes, the top teams are probably playing regularly with the top referees and they probably know them a lot better. at times they seem to be able to communicate stuff to referees, whereas if we ask a question, we're basically told to go away. Teams do train for that, getting referees on side, getting umpires on side. Some big calls can be made and influence a game. Donegal are a top team. They're not up there for nothing. It's not all about football. Maybe we're naive in Cavan because we haven't been dining at the top table for a long time. We need to get a wee bit cuter down here. Now, as the current Leitrim manager and former Cavan manager, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I'd have to agree with a bit of what he says as regards the top teams. To be fair, when we get to Ulster finals and Connacht finals and whatever it is, the better referees do roll out in those. If you're playing in the lower divisions of the league, and I don't mean this in a bad way, I mean you probably get less experienced referees rather than better referees. Maybe that's a better way to put it. And the more experienced referees do referee the games with the bigger teams more. So therefore they are on more first name basis with them. And I always felt that any referee that negotiates with players on the pitch and talks to them and tells them what's happening, because you can go up to catch a ball and somebody will say you can create a free, and referee will blow against you and he doesn't explain it and only antagonises people, and that freedom of information or free flow of information is probably very, very good for players especially. And I would say he's right in that certainly in the lower divisions you don't get that communication, and it could be just inexperienced referees starting out as well, and maybe they're a little bit more fearful about communicating with players in case maybe they say something wrong or they're taken up on it. But I think communication between the referee and all officials and the players is very welcome.
So on a day like this, it can actually be worth a score or two, can it?
Well, a score or two is probably stretching a little bit, and therefore you're saying that the referee or the umpire or the linesman can be influenced, which is not fair to say.
Yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day, the official calls it as he sees it, and he can do that. But the player may not see it the same way that the official seeing it. So a little explanation actually goes a long way to solving the problem there.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if you got a chance to see Donegal's win over Armagh, but the way they turned over the kick out, their pace, power, they seem to have it every which way.
They have. Well, they've been developing that for the last number of years, and Cavan played them, I think it was 2 years ago in Ballybuffet. And you had young Langan and all them young guys were only coming in at that stage, and to be fair to them, you could see on that day they had a lot of good young footballers coming on, and those guys have developed physically as well as and skill wise as well since that, so they're a formidable outfit at the moment.
Yeah, and it's like even Peadar Mogan coming up, like you've mentioned, Michael Langan, Kieran Thompson, and that performance down in Tralee in the league just before the championship started seems to have springboarded him. That's before you get to Michael Murphy and Jamie Brennan, and Paddy McBrearty's only coming in off the bench. How do Cavan go about trying to stop that?
Well, I'm sure Mickey and the lads will come up their own way of doing it. I'd say Cavan will probably minimum have to play a sweeper type system, someone who's going to push out on runners coming in but also protect the full back line, because in the games today they have conceded a lot of goal chances and they're going to have to stop them.
Yeah.
And I suppose that's the first thing they have to do. They're probably going to have to go man to man with a lot of the players, and Michael Murphy, he's one of these guys. A lot of counties will put maybe a guy and a half to him, or maybe sometimes two guys to him, and Michael is quite content with that to let other players play. He'll drop back into his own half back line, he'll pull one or two fellas and he'll allow other players who are good footballers to run at you and create holes. So I think with the Michael Murphy one, I think it's just one person to man up and down. It's all going to be about the matchups, I suppose, and how Cavan get the matchups right. And they got it right in the second half against Down. They probably didn't get it right in the first half. And someone's going to be about getting that right from the get-go, because if they don't, they're going to be in trouble.
And is there any area that you think Cavan can get a bit of joy in this game?
I would say, again, possibly the Rigol full back line. I think that there may be perceived weakness there, especially under high ball. We have Thomas Galligan and young Conor Madden did well last when he came in. We probably have a few guys we can put there that maybe can hurt them a little bit in that area. Yeah. But again, there's a bit of quality of the ball going in as well. It's not a matter of putting a 6'4" guy in and hoofing ball in on top of him, but then it becomes 50-50. It's a matter how they play it.
Yeah. And Brendan Devaney was saying it was one of the best performances he'd seen in a long time from any team against Armagh. He said after the water break, Donegal hit them for 1-7 to a point. Best 15 minutes I've seen a team play in 5 or 6 years. It was out of this world. Do you think that Donegal are up in that tier beside Dublin at this stage?
Well, apart from possibly Mayo at the moment, that's what's left in it. Donegal have been, have showed that they have have the players on the starting 15, but they also show, as you said, they have the backup coming in to back it up. And whether it's a year or two too soon for them, I can't comment on that, because to be honest with you, the younger players are the guys who are taking all the plaudits at the moment. And okay, you know, you have Michael Murphy, who's playing quite well, Neil McGee and a few of those other guys, but you have some young fellas coming in from the sidelines, and you can see Paddy McBrady probably might even start, let's say, on Sunday. And you know, the guy who's an all-star, guy who's, you know, kick points in all angles in Croke Park, and you know, they seem to be functioning quite well as a team. And maybe not, I'm not saying that Paddy will be any difference whether they have to play as a team unit, but they seem to be playing actually better as a team unit at the moment, rather than they're more some of their parts, all their parts in one individual, you know.
Yeah, and what are your thoughts on the job that Mickey Graham has done? You know, he came in from Mullinlough, and he was probably double jobbing at the start of his first season because he took them to a Leinster club title. And then, you know, there's been 2 relegations, but 2 Ulster finals at the same time. Do you think he's changed much even?
Well, look, you don't. You know, in the end of the day, he's only in 2 years, or you said maybe 18 months, and you're not going to change that much that quickly. Funny enough, in football, you come in and you have to adapt to the players and the patterns that have been there. If you need to change it takes a little bit of change to do, and that takes a little bit of time. Look, I suppose it would be disappointed with our league campaigns. There's no point in saying otherwise. We fought long and hard to get to Division 1 back in 2016, and we've been up and down and up and down. Unfortunately, we've stepped back into Division 3, and we were hurt a little bit from that, because we are in Ulster finals. Unfortunately, last year we didn't win. If we win this one, it's great, and you can't win a final unless you get to it. But for a lot of counties, bar 4 provincial titles and an All-Ireland title, you're only looking at 5 teams that are 32 winning something. So I think probably league status is very important to everybody else, bar the teams who win those competitions. And that hasn't varied that much in Ulster in the last 20 years. When you look at Donegal's record, Tyrone, Armagh taking a few out of it and that sort of stuff, it hasn't really gone round to the rest of the people. So, you know, we would hurt a little bit from losing our league status. I think that it makes our teams more competitive. But in saying that, to be fair to him, he's got to 2 Ulster finals, which nobody else could manage in that period before that.
Yeah, and if Cavan are to pull off a shock here, is it going to be something like Grode McKiernan having like the biggest day of his career, or something like that?
I think it's a day of Cavan's probably lesser players, for the want of a better word, playing the best game they've ever played, and also the better players playing better than they've ever played before. I think that's what it's going to need. But I think if they can get a combination of the 15 guys up in the game, maybe 15-20%, and not allowing Donegal to get a run on them, not allowing maybe Donegal to get 2 goals or something in the first half and keep it tight, and after that, you know, to be fair, they will have the confidence from coming behind in the last couple of championship matches, and they did it in league games. They did it in Westmeath and in Kingspan Breffni area in the year. They've done that before and they've finished strong in games, but the bigger guys just don't allow you. They just keep the scoreboards ticking over when you get that little bit of a gap in you, and they can't allow that gap to come.
Yeah, so if you were to put your neck on the line, are you kind of fearing that it's going to be Donegal?
Well, I wouldn't fear it. I'd probably judge it as a game of football, and I suppose if you all you have to do is look at the bookies, and the bookies seldom get it wrong. They've Donegal as strong favourites to win it, and as I'm sure everybody else in Ireland has it the same. You know what I mean? My heart would love to see Cavan win it, but my head probably says Donegal, because we have to look at it from a pragmatic point of view. And if you're involved in football and you're a manager or you're a pundit or whatever it is, you have to see what you see in front of you. So, you know what I mean? Yeah. To me, it would look like Donegal.
Yeah, that's fair enough. So you obviously played against Mayo recently as Leitrim manager, losing by 15 to 10 points, if I remember correctly. Where are they at, do you reckon? I mean, they had just been relegated from the league, albeit that was a narrow defeat to Tyrone after previously hammering Galway. And now they're through to a Connacht final, or sorry, they've won Connacht after beating Roscommon and also Galway again. But that was 14 points to 13. Probably not the most impressive performance that they've produced this year. Where do you think they're at?
Well, again, if you look at it, again, the book is worked in the favourites to be in the All-Ireland final. And that's no disrespect to Cork, Tipperary. They look at their league status, where they have been championship for the last 10 years. Now, Cork probably have an ability, if they get over Tipperary, to maybe hurt them. They're big mobile units and they can move the ball pretty fast. James has changed around a lot. He's a lot of debutants, he's a lot of new people in. They will always perform quite well against the Leithrams of this world and anybody else coming through. There's probably struggled at long periods last week when they should have probably put Galway away. and they didn't, and Galway were coming in on the back of probably have had no championship football, so they were a wee bit rusty, and Galway did get pushed them at the end of the game. But I would see them getting through to an All-Ireland final. Then of course we look at the other side, whoever comes out of Ulster and whoever comes out of Leinster to bring it on the other side. It may be a year too soon for these young guns coming in. That might seem strange for the length of time that Mayo have been around. I think he has a lot of good young footballers coming on. It may be a year or two too soon for them. It's about how we can keep the mix and the blend together. I do think knockout football suits team like Mayo, and even the Donegal, more so than a Dublin or teams who are capable of grinding out results week after week or week, that if they get caught in one result, they'll not get caught in the second one. I think Mayo will have that ability that say, well, okay, every day is an All-Ireland day, we have to go out and do a day in this one. I think that suits them and suits the mentality.
And for Mayo to go all the way, do you think that there's enough scores in that team? I mean, I look sometimes at the inside line and I see Cillian O'Connor in there and Aidan O'Shea in there, and like they're obviously both really good players, but can they turn and get a goal in the same way that Conor Callaghan at Croke Park, in the biggest games against the best teams? So they're a really good team, but I just wonder sometimes, do they have the killers in there?
Well, sometimes, and you've noticed this probably in games, and it depends on where they set up, not that many full forward lines are actually turn around and get goals, because they'll win a ball, run away from the goal, and they'll lay it off to somebody shooting through. So it's how they can get scoring power coming in after wing half forwards and the midfielders who are taking ball at pace and going by defenders. Because inside players, Cillian O'Connor kicks his frees, he'll loop around the back and he'll kick a point maybe from 35-40 metres out, and that type of play. You're probably right, is who is going to Killian's brother probably Jeremy's probably a better chance of scoring a goal maybe than Cillian has in one sense, because of the angle runs that he's making. It's how Mayo can develop that. And that is, but we go back even to the Ulster final, you go back to Donegal. Donegal seen their players who can come running at you hard from distance out the field and hurt you. And probably Mayo, that's why we're back to the point, is that younger players are taking up their half forward lines and their half back lines, and they may just not have the experience to do that yet.
Yeah, and these younger players for Mayo, Owen McLaughlin, Ryan O'Donoghue, Oisin Mullen and so on, do you think it's a year or two soon for them? Like, because even Owen McLaughlin going wing back and Lee Keegan going back, is that kind of a reflection of Lee Keegan's a little bit older and will let a younger guy do those raids up and try and get the scores?
Yes, and maybe it's a case of that they're looking at the full back line and saying, how do we tighten this up? And possibly then we'll come to a Dublin game or a Donegal game or a Cork game when we have to give Lee Keegan a particular role, and you can say, well, okay, you can mark X, Y and Z, because now they'll pull you into the other end of the pitch, which gives you opportunity. So it's all about balance and getting the matchups of the day, and I think James is just looking at creating options as much as Evan is playing Lee Keegan back there.
Yeah, and what about Paddy Durkin? Is he up at there can't be too many better footballers than him at the moment? No,
well, again, power and pace, but when you get to All-Ireland semi-finals and finals, you might say there's many better footballers, but you come up with footballers that's as good.
Yeah.
That's all there, that battle on the day.
Yeah, that's true. And you mentioned Cork and Tip there once or twice in the Munster final this weekend. You would have come up against both of them in Division 3 this year, wouldn't you?
We would have, yes. Tipperary beat us by 2 points, and Cork beat us pretty well. We played them in the first round of the league, and I think with 2 minutes to go to half time, it was a 1 point game, and we conceded 1-1 or 1-2 before that, and the whistle, and that virtually was game over. Look, Cork are never should have been in Division 3. You know what I mean? They're a minimum in Division 2, and they should be looking at the size of their county and the population and playing population, they should be consistently Division 1. They had a very good Super Race last year, if you remember. The Russian Dublin for 60-65 minutes. So they have the players, they have the ability. When you judge it against Kerry the other day, it's very hard to know. What you like about them is they hung in against Kerry. Kerry just couldn't get away from them. Again, if you analyse it and you're pragmatic about it, Kerry probably should have won that match, but they didn't kick the ball across the pan. And, we talk about all the different statistics and matchups and turnovers and everything, and I always say the biggest statistic is in the corner on most grounds, it's called the scoreboard. Yeah. So if you're not ahead of the scoreboard, it doesn't matter about everything else.
I'm just trying to, build up a bit of hope for myself as a tip man coming into this game. And I'm thinking about all the long kickouts that might happen as they did in the semi-final because of the bad weather, and you don't want to risk going short and all that. And I'm thinking if Stephen O'Brien is fully fit and able to play the game, and if Colin O'Riordan is, and Michael Quinlivan comes out around midfield and they start winning primary possession. So can you help me out and tell me how Tip could possibly win this one?
Well, it's really incredible that, again, we'll have to perform at the top of their game. I think they have the two main score getters to have. I would fear that Cork are just physically too strong for them at this time. The Tipperary team of 5 years ago, possibly, yes. I think some of the boys maybe stepped a little bit across. You just don't know, because again you go back to the weather factor and weather conditions, and there's a lot of levelling out there. But we seen Dublin against Laois last week. We could see even Mayo playing a league in the first round of Connacht. Most teams can live with the better conditioned teams for 45-50 minutes, but it's a conditioning factor after that, especially this time of the year.
And do you give Meath any chance of an upset in the Leinster final against Dublin?
Well, Meath have improved. I don't think that they're good enough to beat Dublin yet. I think they'll give them a good rattle. I think that psychologically Meath always step up for the Dublin game. They put away a lot of goals in the last couple of games. Have they improved enough to beat Dublin? Probably not.
Yeah, it's probably a bridge too far. And just a final question then. You're staying on with Leitrim for a third season next year. How long of a break do you give the players before you get back to it?
Well, again, we're waiting on but we don't even know when the National League is starting. There were reports out this morning that it may start mid-February now. I thought it maybe regionalised. I'm only going by what I'm reading in the news lines. The talking about Championship All-Ireland being finished by the end of July. So suddenly a week ago, people were talking about mid-March for the league at the end of March. I'm not knowing about Championship. Now to this morning, we're talking about mid-February and playing a condensed league, maybe split into regional areas. So instead of 18th, 14th, and top two probably playing out. I don't know what the format is, but they're probably trying to buy time, and that's what they're at the minute, and see where we go with the COVID, see what the vaccine does for us when it's available. In the end of the day, if the vaccine is available to all the players and they can get inoculated against it, that means then takes an awful lot of pressure off how you can train and what you can do. And I suppose the financial side to it. And to run national leagues and run county teams, it costs money, and they are probably looking as when you can get the punters through the gate. So it's probably a mix of everything in there, and all that can change quite quickly depending on what a vaccine does.
Yeah. Was it actually tough running a county team considering COVID and all that this year, or did it run smoothly enough for you?
Well, it didn't run well for us, as you know. We had to pull out the Down game. You see, I suppose it's how you do it and where you go with it. We went by the national health lines. We had close contacts with guys who were down. We did a full squad test. And, and this is, people are asking me about how numbers are rising these days and everybody's doing what they're doing. We had two guys who were totally asymptomatic. Hadn't symptom kind before testing or after testing. They never showed anything. And people say, yeah, but you must have had a sore throat, you must have had a cough. Absolutely nothing. So it's just one of those diseases that's very, very hard to stop when it's so many people can be asymptomatic with it. And we did our full squad test. I don't know many other counties did that, but we felt that it was the fairest thing to do, because these players are working. They're going home to, some of them, to elderly parents, grandparents, maybe siblings that's maybe not so healthy or carrying some little underlying conditions, and you have to be more careful of that. And I'm not as young and gung ho maybe as I was 20 years ago, and I probably look at all sides of it. I know you would have had some pundits and some managers who says we should play irrespective, which is fine, but in the end of the day, as I said to one guy, I says, have you known anybody who's been very ill with this? And he said, no. Have you known anybody that has lost their life with it? And he said, no. Well, I says, I've known both. And I said, when you see that, you look at things in a different perspective. Yeah. And this is about, we see it with the guys with the soccer at the moment, we see it in rugby, and the GAA has been relatively lucky, as somebody says, the weaker counties, which, what I mean. But at the end of the day, Sligo, Donegal had a little bit of bother early on. Armagh had a few problems with it. I think Down a little bit of trouble with it ourselves. The 4 or 5 counties has had issues with it. The bigger counties, can line out a team tomorrow and you'll see a name or two maybe missing off a team sheet or out of a 26, and you'll say, he must be picked up a little injured, but we don't know why they're missing, and then 2 weeks later they can be back or whatever it is. So,
that's
they're really lucky the competition ran as far as they have and ran off so well, and to be fair, to county boards and managers and staff and probably all the medical staff within those county boards. They've done a Trojan job in doing that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, look, I really appreciate you joining me, Terry, and sure, enjoy the Ulster final at the weekend.
Thanks.